friend. Are you ready to move into a leadership position? Do you have interests and ambitions that you want to pursue, but feel like you don't know how to take that next step? Maybe you want to start your own coaching or consulting agency. I'm Mel, and I help educators define their career path through correct mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for your career transition. I will show you how to level up your leadership skills, share your expertise in a new way, create impact on a larger scale, and put your leadership in motion. As an educator for over 20 years, I started to feel underused and like I had more to give. I knew when the time had come for me to leave the classroom and affect change on a larger level. Now, I'm ready to help you determine where your talents and skills mesh with your passions and interests, put your leadership in motion, and move into that next phase of your educational career journey. Let me help you define your career path by having the right mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for that next leadership position. So power up and put your leadership in motion. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I am your host, Dr. Mel. Today, I have with me a guest. I have a guest from Oklahoma City. He is not too far from me. Oklahoma City is actually just very adjacent to Missouri, not too far at all. I have Dr. Chris Culver. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited too. And we were talking before the show that we kind of didn't get our ducks in a row, which is totally fine because this is going to be a very organic conversation, and I'm excited to see where that goes. So, Chris, you are a kindness advocate. You are a Gen Z and Alpha expert, which you're going to have to explain to me because I don't even understand that at all. Culture guru, you're an adjunct professor, you are a speaker, you do all kinds of things. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, what your journey in education has looked like so far, and what you're doing now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, we didn't have our ducks in a row. I own that, but I think teaching is being flexible, right? That's the name of the game, being ebb and flow. So as you shared, my name is Dr. Chris Culver. I'm a proud product of Oklahoma education. I come from a divorced family. And so my parents separated when I was 6. My dad and that side of the family live in North Carolina. My mom and my brother and my stepdad live here in Oklahoma. So during the week, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And on the weekends, I grew up on a 300-acre farm. And so I have a unique experience in the sense that I worked and lived in a really thriving suburban community, but also inner city and in a rural space. I've known that I was going to be a teacher since a little kid. My dad jokes that my 10th birthday party was an Office Depot. And when other kids were getting toys, I was getting office supplies. And so they made fun of him. And he's like, no, listen, my son really wants a pointer and a globe for his birthday. And it's so true. There's pictures that I have of my nameplate on my desk when I was a little kid. And so no shock that I would end up being a teacher. And so I graduated and went on. I dropped out of college 3 times actually to start the story because my mom and my stepdad discouraged me from being a teacher because of all the things we've heard, right? You'll make money, like all the things.
Right.
And so when I was in my journey to get a business degree, I took statistics 3 times. And I think I realized at that point, like, let's wake up, let's reassess here. Let's realize this is not working. And so when I got on the track to be an English education major, I was able to flourish. Of course, I had challenges that I had overcome and had to dig deep with grit and perseverance and tenacity, but it seemed to come a lot easier to me than statistics. And so graduated and served as a high school English teacher for many years, working in school improvement. For those who are not familiar, it's schools that have been identified as targeted by the state for needing some sort of improvement at the academic level. And so as a teacher, and then had the opportunity to go abroad and serve at an international school, working in Thailand. Wow. It was an incredible experience. Served as head of high school and worked with some of the advanced students and also lower students. So I had a lot of layered of language proficiency. So that was a really unique experience. Came back stateside and said I would never do middle school. And I ended up as a middle school administrator.
God has a very funny sense of humor like that, doesn't he? Because
Yes,
I've said the same thing about a few things in education, and guess what? He like tripled up on me at one point. He's like, bam, bam, bam. You said those 3 things, and guess what? You're going to do all 3.
That's exactly it. I said I would never do middle school, and it manifested, right? And so I had 1,000 students, 5th through 8th grade. It was a really rewarding and exciting time. And then in the last 3 years, I served as executive team member of a superintendent's cabinet here within the Oklahoma City metro area, working in district improvement. And I earned my doctorate researching school culture, motivation, the collective impact on teacher retention. And Mel, I'll tell you, like when the culture doesn't align with the research that I know to be true, it's hard for me to get excited and be motivated. And I know that oftentimes we hear rhetoric around like, these are our values, this is our mission. We have beautiful posters on the wall, but if it's not being lived out every day, then it's really difficult to get intrinsically motivated to go to work and to do the hard tasks to support students and to support teachers. And so that's where I was. I was at a really pivotal point that the culture was toxic. And so I decided to walk away not knowing what I was going to do. And that really led into understanding more around the science of kindness. And so been on a speaking journey since July of this year, spreading love and kindness wherever I may go, but also helping educators and leaders understand the power of culture and today's students. As you even mentioned in my intro, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, that's the generation we're serving today. And so if we don't know who they are, it's really hard to connect with them, right? To build those relationships that are so necessary. And I'll be vulnerable. When I stepped into the classroom in 2023 as a college professor, man, I brought my tool belt from years ago and it was,
Right.
I'm going to kill it. I'm going to slay the game, right? And I'll tell you what, the wheels fell off the bus immediately. Like I was not prepared to handle the challenges of today's students. And so as I dug into the research, as I dug into more about who they are, I really wanted to help teachers and leaders understand how to reach and teach them, because they're not just students that we're serving in our classrooms, but they're also our colleagues that we're serving alongside of. They're also the teachers that are down the hall. And sometimes they might even be moving in to those leadership positions that are that instructional coach, that dean, that assistant principal. And so do we know how they operate? How do we collaborate with them to be effective? And so over the course of more than a decade, I've had a unique experience of serving in a variety of capacities, but it's been a joy. And I really do see this as a calling because it was education that saved my life. And so I'm excited to get back into the field that hopefully will save others as well.
Wow, that is a lot. Yeah, quite a journey into where you are now. And a couple of things. First of all, I'm a farm girl too. So what kind of farm did you grow up on?
We had cows and horses.
Yep, that's me. Grew up on a farm with cows, and I just came from there this morning, down there with my dad, and drove back to St. Louis this morning. So, farm life is quite an experience. I loved it, but I also wanted to be in the city and have a little bit of a different lifestyle for a while. And my boyfriend, he is all city, and so I've taken him to the farm, and it's been a completely new experience for him. So he's learned a lot being on a farm.
I always say that, like, while the farm life's not for me, I have mad respect for those that do it because it takes a special person to get up every single day and to do that work. It's really, really hard work. And I don't think people realize that.
No, they definitely don't. They definitely don't. Another thing is, and I kind of alluded to this on one of your posts, you and Darren Peppard just had a speaking engagement together. And I kind of alluded to the fact that I'm a little jealous of that because I would really like to move into that space and start speaking. I talk a lot on passion, purpose, and your potential and putting your potential in motion. And so that's kind of my catchphrase, kind of put that into my book, my Educator to Entrepreneur book. And like, that's the whole first section of my book, and your why and all of your gifts and talents and your interests and how you can mold those into the thing that God wants you to do next. And so I'm looking for those opportunities. Hint, hint, anyone out there who's listening that knows of anyone who could use a speaker.
I'll make a shameless plug as well. I want to give a shout out to NCMLE for hosting so many featured speakers and having Darren Peppard, Dr. Darren Peppard as the keynote. It was a great experience. And Mel, we would love to have you. I'm sure the future as a featured speaker there as well. I'll make sure to get you more information as that comes out from the organization.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Darren has been on the show and he's coming back on in a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks, I think. Can't remember exactly what his date is, but he's going to be on here in a few weeks to talk about his new book. Him and his co-author, cannot think of her name at this moment, which I feel, I'm sorry.
Katie Kinder.
Katie Kinder. Okay, great. Thank you for knowing that information for me, but they're going to be on here talking about their new book. And so I'm super excited to have him as a return guest. So
That's awesome. Well, I'm featured in their new book talking about
wonderful.
Generation Z and Generation Alpha. So as people peruse the book, don't be a stranger when they see my name or my picture in there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And at the end of the show, I'll give you the opportunity to tell my audience how to connect with you. So they will have no trouble finding you when this episode comes out and we're talking about the book and all of the things. So great. So let's dive into today's. We are just going to wing it because, and I'm not going to let you own the whole thing, definitely, because I was sitting here about 3 minutes before I'm supposed to speak to you. And I'm like, I kind of forgot to look at his guest host sheet. And so I pop on there and I'm like, there's not one there. So that's just as much on me because I should have done that like 2 weeks ago when you booked your time slot and didn't. So we'll just share that, share
Okay,
that
well,
responsibility.
teamwork makes the dream work. So we're making that,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. So we're going to wing it today and
Good.
we're going to talk about some great things. So, you just had a speaking engagement. So maybe we start there. Whatever we talk about, we're going to keep in mind that this is for aspiring and new building leaders and what their role is. And, there's a lot that goes into being a building leader, not just your role, but your own social, emotional, um, well-being, I guess we should say, and just the things that you don't know and being okay with not knowing things and getting help and asking questions and all of those things. When I was a building principal for the first time, I thought I had to have all the answers and I felt guilty when I didn't. And I want the new and aspiring leaders to know it's okay that you don't have all the answers. You're not supposed to have all the answers your first year or your second year of being a building leader. So let's just start there and let's just take it and I'll follow up and
Well, it sounds great. I think you make a great point that we don't know all the answers, right? That's why we
right.
surround ourselves with a team and we really work to build a collaborative environment where people's voices are elevated and celebrated, that people are physically and psychologically safe to take risks, to engage in conversations, to be creative, to be innovative. And to be honest, I think back to my experience as a first year assistant principal. Culture is everything. I mean, we know that if you don't have a thriving school culture, if people don't feel seen, heard, valued, and respected for who they are, if there's not relationships and trust and empowerment and autonomy, I mean, I know they're buzzwords to a lot of people, but these are critical elements of school. If they're not foundational in our approach of leadership or even our connection of conversation, then we really have a bigger issue. We've got to get to fixing those problems. I think about my first year as an assistant principal. I worked with a principal, and she was between the devil and Hitler mixed, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yes, quite a combination. Like I always feel good saying that, but like that is the experience. Just really looking for problems. Like Dr. Darren Peppard says, we were looking for problems. And when you look for problems, you find them. And so instead of celebrating and elevating students and their success and their growth and teachers, we were on the opposite side. And so I was grateful, so grateful when COVID came and we had the extended break, because it meant I had a reprieve of my own emotional health, because even more vulnerability. I was at the point that I had to call the employee assistance hotline, right? I was at the point that
Wow.
I was waving the white flag to central office and nobody was answering the call. And so I had to make the shift for myself. I had to resign, step away, and figure out how am I going to recenter myself to continue doing this work, because I know that this is not what's best for students. When the response is, when we lose 50 teachers a year and the response is we have a teacher problem, we know that really isn't true. We have a leadership problem. We have a culture. And so
Exactly.
as I look back on my career and that experience, I'm so grateful, because had that not happened, I would have never launched the work to do my dissertation. I would have never dove into the culture studies that I have to identify that I'm not crazy, right? Like culture is foundational. And it really encouraged a lot of growth. And so I echo your sentiments that God will put us back in situations that sometimes we don't understand. And so fast forward a couple of years, I was a school culture and climate specialist in the district because that was my jam. I loved that work. And wouldn't you know, the assistant superintendent would call me after Labor Day and say, hey, you're moving back to that campus as an assistant principal to help them out. And I was like, I don't think I can do this, right? Like, I don't think like this is going to be for me. And so I faced those challenges. I went back But what I'll tell you is, even though I didn't have control of the entire situation, I could control what was within my control. And that helped me tremendously. But because of it, I was pouring love, hope, and joy into students. I was celebrating growth among students. I was celebrating teachers. I was visible. People are asking, like, why do you have an office? You're out here in the hallway all the time. But I will tell you that when I came into the building, the reason they moved me is they had more than, I think, 800 suspensions in the first 4 weeks of school. I mean, we had triple digit referrals. Attendance was,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, just like awful for students, right? And so I made it a mission of mine to turn that around for my respective grade level of the students that I was serving. And I did. We were able to show growth academically. We decreased suspensions and referrals. We increased attendance. And it's all about treating people, in my experience, treating people the way you want to be treated. And that goes to our students. Today's students are so vastly different than when you and I probably went to school, right? Mm-hmm. And they're very tech driven, social media driven. They don't know how to handle their emotions, sometimes dysregulated. And so it's really about building those trusting relationships with them so they can tell you what's going on, so we can get to the root of the issue before we ever get them to learning. And it's the same for our teachers. And so just applied that same understanding through leadership. And so navigated some experiences of pushback, I'm sure, with other leaders and the head principal.
I'm going to stop you for just a second, only because I want to follow up before we get too far ahead. So one thing that you mentioned several things, but communication is another one that I think is absolutely something that we have to add. If there's bad communication, it's very confusing, not only for the parents and the students, but also the staff. And I've seen a school recently that the communication is not good and everybody's confused. We don't know what's happening. You're waiting till the last minute to tell us things. You're assigning us duties at the very last minute and we're not able to be prepared, which causes stress and anxiety. And ultimately, we're not able to do our best job because you're dumping this on us very last minute and it's super important. And that's not fair. That's not okay. And another thing that you said, there's another school that's completely the opposite, and the culture is so good that they never have openings for anything. And you can't even get in that district because it's so good. People do not leave. So if you're having high turnover, it's higher up coming down. And so you need to look at that and see what's going on and try to figure out how to flip that around.
Absolutely. I think you make a great point that if we're having significant turnover, we have to look internally and reflect amongst our team and our school what's happening, what's driving these people away. And when they give us feedback, right, we should elicit their feedback to say, hey, why is it that you're leaving? What could we have done to keep you? Mm-hmm. Now, I recognize there are some folks that are just not fit to row in the same direction of our boat. So we're going to help them find another boat to get on to keep rowing.
Right. But that, in my opinion, those are few and far between, and they got into education because they thought they needed to or whatever, and it was not a good fit for them. So yes, we want those people to exit because that's not where they need to be. Right. I'm talking about the super high turnover, right. Over 50%, over 60%, sometimes over 80%. That is not because it's a bad fit for that teacher.
You're right.
Or the teacher is a bad fit for the school. That's because the school is a bad fit for many teachers, many. And there needs to be some self-reflection, definitely, and some, we don't have a lot of teachers here lately. Everybody is feeling the pinch. I was actually on a phone call today while I was driving back up here with someone, and his question to me was, Dr. Mel, in my state, what I'm hearing from other states is that we're putting teachers in the classroom that aren't necessarily as ready as they need to be in the classroom. And I said that is in Missouri as well, because there is such a teacher shortage. We're trying to fill positions the best we can. So we've fixed the subbing situation and we've created a class for them through the State Department, and they go through this class. But then we're also seeing a different type of educational program from some colleges that is accelerated. And that's because there is such a shortage. The shortage isn't just because of, we can always say there's politics and that kind of stuff, but there's politics in the district that I'm talking about that has no turnover, and those teachers are still staying there. So that district is doing something right.
Absolutely. And I think The conversation always gleans itself too around money. Like, okay, let's give them more money. And I'll tell you vulnerably, when I did my dissertation research just in 2022 and 2023, that's not true. Teachers said
Right.
they would rather have trusting relationships where they were
Mm-hmm.
empowered and had autonomy and they were recognized for the work they were doing. And just like you said, with transparent and clear communication, because clear is kind, right? Clarity
Mm-hmm.
is kindness. Then they would have with any more money. Of course, everyone would be motivated to make more dollars, but it's not the thing that's holding them at that respective space. It's much what you said, Dr. Mel. It is that culture. It's those leaders
Mm-hmm.
who that space where teachers can thrive and can flourish and can take risks and know that they're going to be rewarded for innovation and they're reaching students, right? And I think about
Exactly.
when our cultures are bad for teachers, what's that like for the student experience then, right? We as
Mm-hmm.
leaders are responsible not just for teachers, but also our students.
Yes. And if you have teachers who are just trying to survive through the day, they're not doing their best job and they are not making connections with the students. If they're in survival mode as a teacher, they're not where they need to be building those relationships with students.
You mentioned a good when you mentioned communication, it triggered a memory of mine to when I was serving at a campus with that same principal. We have a lot of tornadoes here in Oklahoma, so we do
Yes.
tornado drills regularly to prepare
Mm-hmm.
when the tornadoes come. And I remember, just like you said, if we don't communicate what's going on, then people feel confused, they feel lost, they feel like they don't know what's happening. And so they begin to create their own stories in their mind. And I remember one day the head principal called all of us into her office and said, "Today is the tornado drill." And my initial response was, have we told the teachers? Have we modeled this for students? Do we know what's going to happen? Have we shown the demonstration? Like, are we prepared for what this is going to look like when we ring the bell? Or is it going to look like the Wild Wild West down on the farm?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the response was, I hope everyone's prepared for this. The response was, the students went to school here last year. They know what to do.
Right. Exactly. I'm going to push back on that, not only for the
Glad.
sake of the students that didn't go there, the sake of the teachers who weren't there last year. And recently, I've been subbing a little bit also to help pay some bills and just to stay in and really think about what I need to do as far as closing some educational gaps with my consultancy. And for some reason, I have managed to make it into 2 or 3 fire drills and a tornado. I don't even know, as a sub in a district that I didn't know I don't know protocol. I don't even know like where the maps are. I don't know where I'm supposed to go with the students, any of that stuff. So it is much more than just, okay, the kids know what to do. That's not the kids' job.
Yeah, and you should have seen the experience, right? And when the students didn't know what to do, we were told to blow our whistles. It sounded and looked
Yeah.
like wet kitty cats running around all over the place. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just in disbelief because I was like, in a safety precautionary drill that we're trying to prepare for the future, we've caused more harm and chaos to students and teachers than we did any good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just a reminder that when we know we have obligations that are required by our state or any kind of legislative body to meet compliance measures for whatever, right, funding or safety, we need to be forward thinking in our approach and communicate that frequently and often to our teachers and our students so that when the day comes to practice that drill, we're not lost in the abyss. Just like you as a sub, you're clearly identified how to respond in a situation of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So as leaders, we have to be several steps ahead, thinking about those situations that we're not springing them on the day of or using rationale as to students were in here last year.
Exactly.
Not safe, not smart. It doesn't create a culture of care. It doesn't create a culture of clarity or kindness. It creates confusion and chaos.
Right. And what if there's a kindergarten teacher or two, or the entire section of kindergarten teachers is brand new? Those
Right.
kids didn't go to school here last year. And
Great.
even if they did, they're 5 years old.
Good
They
point.
don't know. They're not going to remember over the summer,
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What an irresponsible statement. Definitely. As a building leader, what are some things that you can do to make sure that you are creating that great culture and that you are communicating and you're doing all of the things that you need to do?
I think the first and foremost, never ask someone to do something you're not willing to do yourself.
Mhm.
We often get inundated with tasks that are coming from central office or from other spaces, and so we need to prioritize what is the most pressing matter, for me to handle right now. I think we have to be visible, we have to be present. We need to be in classrooms, building relationships with students, be in the hallway, doing lunch duty, doing before and after school duty, and know that the paperwork or the things that will take a lot of our time can wait, or can be prioritized differently. And so we have to use systems and create systems to ensure that we're doing that. Like for me, I was all about being amongst kids and teachers when kids and teachers were at school, right? Like that made
Yes.
sense to me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I also felt like when I was out and amongst the students, we had less behavioral problems. We had less issues that were
Yes. I'm going to give you
manifesting.
some snaps now because yes.
We had less behaviors that were manifesting because students were looking for that connection, right? We want to make sure that every child's connected to someone. And so I think we have to be strategic with our time. We're all given the same amount of time in a day, but it's how we use that time to be efficient and effective in our work.
Exactly. And yes, you need to be doing the things that doing all of the things and not asking people to do the things that you wouldn't do yourself. But on the flip side of that, don't be afraid to let others help you because that was where I was at my first year. I felt like I had to do all the things because that's going to create burnout very quickly as a new building leader because you are learning your job. You're learning kids if you're not in the same district where you've worked as a teacher, you're learning procedures, you're learning all of the things. You're just learning how to be a principal. And you need some support. You need to take some monkeys off of your back and let other people carry those. And it also shows that you trust them. It builds trust. And it gives them a chance to shine and show you what they can do. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think we have to be mindful too that even if we're sitting in that seat, we can still be vulnerable with our team, right? We can still be
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable about our experience or be vulnerable about what we're navigating. That too will help foster that trust. But you're absolutely correct. We have to give them things to show them, hey, we trust you. You can do these things. You're shining. This is where you thrive
Mm-hmm.
in this space. But that also opens up conversations for additional coaching or support, but also to celebrate people, to say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
look what so and so did and the great work we had from it. And so it is a hard shift not to want to take on everything. I think I'm the same way as a natural doer or fixer. I wanted to start doing all the things, and I have to be mindful. We have to delegate out and build the capacity in other future leaders so that we know that if we're gone one day or something happens one day, that the ship and the work won't stop.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. This has been a great conversation. We have talked a while, and I mean, time has gone quickly for sure. So, as you're thinking about our new and aspiring leaders, what is one spark that you can give them? Spark of inspiration or nugget of I call them power surges and I call them all kinds of things. So, today we're going with the power surge. What kind of power surge can you give my audience?
I think in a world in which we're so driven to compare ourselves against other people, don't compare yourself against other administrators or
Mm-hmm.
other leaders.
Right.
I think you can use people for inspiration, but you're going to find your own juju, your own lane, your own way that it works for you. And once you find that way and you begin to process those systems and processes that are best for you, continue doing it. Refine your work and get better, but
Mm-hmm.
don't have that imposter syndrome or that mindset of I'm comparing myself, I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing this. You're going to find what works for you. Believe in yourself because you've gotten to
Mm-hmm.
the spot. Continue to support and grow yourself and know that you're exactly where you're meant to be. Because if you weren't, you wouldn't be there. And you're exactly what that
Exactly.
place needs so they can continue to thrive. So comparison robs everything for us. And so I don't want to rob the opportunity for other people as they aspire to lead in respective spaces.
Yes, absolutely. Comparison robs your joy
Yeah,
because your journey is yours and you can't walk in other people's shoes and they can't walk in yours. So know that you're going to grow. I mean, if you're a first year, you only have up to go. I mean, you're going to get better because we all do. And we all have imposter syndrome when we very first start. You know, it's scary to step into a new role like that and be a leader of so many. And you can do it. Like you said, you're meant to be there or you wouldn't be there. God does not put you in a place where He does not equip you with what you need. You already have the tools. He's going to continue to equip you as you move along. So
that's
great.
absolutely it.
Great conversation. So, Dr. Culver, tell us how we can connect with you after the show.
Well, I'm on all social media platforms and it's at Dr. Chris Culver on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it may be. I'd love to have you there. But I also own a consulting company, Orange Sparrow. And so you can find that at www.orangesparrow.org. And it has all free resources, ways to connect with me, speaking engagement, all of the work is there.
Wonderful. And what does Orange Sparrow, how did you come up with that name?
I love it. So orange is my favorite color, but it also teaches us to be bold in our endeavors. And the sparrow keeps us humble and in search of service for others. And so collectively, we are on a mission to spread love, joy, hope, and kindness in a bold way to honor the mission of if you can't find the light, be the light. And so out trying to spread light wherever we can.
I love it. I love it. That is very well thought out. Good job.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I appreciate the affirmation.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I have enjoyed our conversation. Even though we weren't sure where it was going, there was no lull. We had a great conversation. So wonderful. Thank you again so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was a great and true honor.
The honor is definitely ours. And for the rest of my audience, thank you for showing up today and joining us. We sure appreciate you listening. And have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and I will see you back here, same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.